All right, so now we're looking at week 3, chapters 5 and 6. 5 and 6 starts talking about sexual deviance. It talks about human trafficking, and that is a huge issue globally. But I want you to go ahead and take a look at what it says about human trafficking. It also talks about prostitution. I want you to note that prostitution is actually legal in the U.S. in a specific area, which is interesting. It talks about pornography. What is the definition the book gives of pornography? Not quite what we would expect, is it? But I want you to note that pornography is seen to be degrading to women, and it also reinforces typical stereotypes of women and men in their roles. Let me see here. Let me take a look at this quiz. Doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doop-a-doo. Yes, I'm making sound effects. You'll get over it. All right, good stuff. Now, for chapter 6, it talks about just what is poverty. Just what is poverty. And it also talks about, you'll see terms that talk about relative versus absolute poverty. Now, absolute means you are absolutely poor. You are absolutely in poverty. Where relative poverty is, well, I'm in poverty relative to what I think I should be, or relative to the neighbors down the road. All right. So absolute versus relative. All right. So it talks about different types of poverty. What type of people are in poverty the most? Who do you see in poverty the most? What gender, what situation? It also talks about homeless veterans. What percent of homeless people are veterans? And then I want you to ask yourself why that many veterans are homeless. It also talks about the distribution of wealth. I want you to get a look at the distribution of wealth. That top 1%, how many are there? How much wealth does that top 1%? How much wealth does the rest of us have? All right. It also talks about the infant mortality rate. It kind of hints about that. But I want you to understand that the infant mortality rate is vitally important to understanding a whole entire nation's economic, political, education, family, healthcare. It is so important because when the woman is pregnant, it covers education. How is she educated? What food does she have? Does she have money for proper food? Exercise. Is there pollution? Is there food polluted? Is the water polluted? So it covers the whole entire spectrum of her adult pregnancy. Then the baby itself, how the baby is taken care of, how the pregnancy is taken care of through the healthcare system. So the infant mortality rate really gives us a good quick view of the health and wealth of a nation. It talks about welfare fraud, which we should all be angry about, because welfare fraud, what does that do? Does that increase our cost for our insurance and our issues and our healthcare cost? Does it? Think about that. Discrimination versus prejudice. Prejudice is an attitude, is a thought, where discrimination is the action. So you can think whatever. That's prejudice. But when you act on it, when you refuse to hire somebody because of their age or because of their gender or because of their race, that's discrimination. But you thinking about it but not doing it, that's prejudice. You need to understand the difference between the two. The book also mentions the self-fulfilling prophecy. And that's one of those where when you believe something, it becomes true. Like when somebody labels you, they label you as smart. Hey, I'm smart, I'm awesome. You believe it, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, you become smart. Somebody labels you stupid. I'm stupid, I'm so stupid. Next thing you know, you believe it and then you become it. So, if you're ever given a negative label, you should use it as a driving force to not be that negative label and to rise above that and be something better. Don't be a self-fulfilling prophecy. All right, so let's take a look at this here. All right, it talks about the working poor. Just how many hours a week do they have to work to be considered working poor? It talks about poverty. Why does poverty continue in the United States? We're a great country. We're industrialized. We're one of the top-notch countries around. Why do we still have poverty? We're one of the wealthiest nations, and there's that gap between the rich and the poor. How is our gap between the rich and the poor compared to other industrial nations? Let me see here. When it talks about addiction, mental illness, and it talks about that in relation to homelessness. What does it say? What does the book say about addiction and mental illness and its correlation with homelessness? Let me see here. How many children are trafficked across international borders? You need to know that. All right. So that is chapters 5 and 6, week 3, and I will see you for week 4.